Hello and welcome to We Don't Have a Title for This. We don't know what it is. I'm Jeremy, and I'm going to be asking Stephanie some questions about the Texas Legislature, what's going on with the voting and the election coming up, and just some general questions that I got from people on Facebook that are wanting to enlighten themselves about maybe how to vote or maybe where to direct resources if they are not able to, because you can't vote for everyone. Right, Steph, you can only vote for the people in your district.
Correct. There are many different kinds of districts, but you may only vote in yours.
Right. So yeah, and they got rid of straight ballot
That's a
voting,
big
right?
deal. Yeah, so
Who is
in
that supposedly a victory for?
Republicans, it's a victory
Okay.
for Republicans because the theory is that Democrats tend to be darker in skin color and more working class, so they have less time to get to the polls. And with straight
Mm,
party voting, you can walk in and get it done in a minute or two. But now it might take you 10 minutes to fill out a ballot as you're checking each box one by one. So the
yeah.
idea is that it's more time consuming. So that would be a deterrent to someone who didn't have a lot of spare time.
Well, before we go on, let's do some brief introductions.
Okay.
So we'll do this a little out of order. So like that would be like the sting. Those first couple little bits of information are kind of like, oh, now you're
Mhm.
hooked. But
Ah,
who am I even talking to, or who's
I
talking at
don't
me?
know.
So who are you, Stephanie Chiarello? What's your title and are you even allowed to do this?
Oh, shit. My name is Stephanie Chiarello. I'm the chief of staff for a Democratic state representative. His name is Bobby Guerra. He's down in the valley at District 41, which is your House district number. I am allowed to do this, both as long as I'm just giving you information and you're not paying me. As a state employee, I can give you information about the Texas legislature. And then allegedly, I have the rights to free speech. So technically, as Stephanie Chiarello, in my spare time, I can do whatever I want.
And you're not in your office right now.
No, I'm at home. I'm on my lunch break. So this is
Oh,
just
okay.
Stephanie to Jeremy. And tell me who you are, Jeremy.
I'm Jeremy Sweetlamb. I'm an educator, also actor, director, improviser about town. Um, and generally, I'm pretty confused about what's going on in my state, which has always been my state. I was born here, raised here. I've
Oh,
lived other places, but um, I have no idea what's
no
going
idea.
on. And until until I was able to vote for Obama in 2008, I didn't even vote, so I didn't have any idea what was going
Wow.
on.
Well, I have, side note, I have a show, a political comedy show. It's called Over the Ledge, Lege. And the goal is to educate people about the Texas legislature. Because what I have found is exactly what you just said. People know presidential top of the ticket,
Hmm.
but it's hard to get them to know who their senators are at the federal level, or even understand that there is a difference between a senator at the federal level and a senator at the state level. So that's
Yeah,
been my goal, is to teach people about the governor all the way down the ballot.
cool. All right, so let's move on to another question.
Okay.
Frank N from Facebook
Uh-huh.
writes, are
Hi,
dropped off,
Frank.
yeah, are dropped off absentee ballots counted after the in-person ballots or before or concurrently? Do you know?
Concurrently.
So as
Concurrently.
soon as it
So
comes in, they're just like, they tally it up.
yes. So
Okay.
the county clerk's office, the county clerk, so Dana de Beauvoir is our county clerk in Travis County. And she, I know, of the good looking, I think is what it means in French. Um, she can make rules for her own office within the set of rules that are set up for her by the state. So my understanding is as they come in, she has workers counting the ballots.
Okay.
But there are some, your absentee ballot, I think, can arrive uh, maybe the day after the election, can be postmarked. So
Hmm.
depending on how many ballots there are that are absentee, we might not have a result in lots of races on election day. And that's one thing that we really got to prep people for.
Yeah.
They will not tell you the tally of the vote, right?
Until they're done.
So they can tell you early voting numbers. And I think this is something that people don't understand is The Secretary of State knows how many people vote every day during early voting, and they can report those numbers, right? 200 people voted, 2,000
Oh
people
yeah.
voted,
Okay.
but they're not going to tell you who voted for who,
Yeah.
right? Because
Oh,
that's going
because
to
that would
change.
just, yeah, that would
Yeah.
change people's perspective.
Right. So they are counting the votes daily.
Mm-hmm.
And then on election night, 15 minutes after the polls close, they're supposed to release early voting numbers at that point.
Oh, okay.
And then you're just waiting for the boxes to come in on that day.
And so then they just call races based on, we have, because it'll say like, 1% reporting and we're calling this already. So how can they do that?
Good question. Well, because you can look at a district and you can tell from historic voting patterns what
Yeah.
percentage of people tend to vote Republican or Democratic, right? And although it's impossible right now, it feels like to predict what's going to happen, you can sort of tell. Like if a district is 88% Democratic, it means that there's like literally not enough. And I want to say that again, literally not enough Republicans to change that outcome. So even, and especially when early voting comes in and you can be like, okay, early voting was 30% of the vote of the 88%, like you've already hit what's called your win number.
Okay.
That's why they can call some of those. But districts that are within a couple of points, those are much harder. And then you do know precinct by precinct, they call them boxes. I mean, I guess they're still boxes, but you know which precinct and which box should be good for you or bad for you. So on election night, as the boxes are coming in, you've probably got this Excel spreadsheet where you're like, oh, good, that box was good or that box was bad. So if only bad boxes are out and you're losing, you're going to lose.
You toast. Yeah.
So kind of just like a weatherman gets so excited about a hurricane, like election night is what election workers live for, taking in those numbers and drawing the circles. And I mean, we've been training for months now for election night.
That's great. It's good to know someone's taking care of it.
Thanks.
Cliff C from Facebook, right?
Hi, Cliff.
How do we reclaim our state from the gerrymandering done in the past? And there haven't been a lot of stories about Texas gerrymandering. You hear a lot about other states, but when I look at my district, I think it stretches all the way to like North Houston, and I'm in Austin.
Right.
That seems weird. Has there been like a lot of Republican gerrymandering in Texas?
Yes, and there's also a lot of Democratic gerrymandering.
Okay.
And so one thing to understand is that whoever is in power wants to stay in power.
Course.
Right? Democrat or Republican, we both do it. So when the Democrats were in charge, they drew districts that were more favorable to them. And the same thing's happening with Republicans right now. It certainly was a big deal here in Texas when we decided to suddenly redistrict mid-census period.
Oh,
and this is Tom DeLay, all of a sudden decided we needed to draw new districts. I feel like, so we redistricted in 2011 in Texas, and that's where we got these really strange shaped Republican gerrymandered districts. They're still fighting that, or they just ended. And guess what? We redistrict again next year. Right? So one of the big problems here in Texas is that although it really should be voters picking their elected officials, through this process of redistricting, it's elected officials picking their voters.
Yeah, that seems dangerous.
It does seem dangerous. And certainly, what is a community, right? I mean, there is a line in East Austin that pretty much goes up to Pflugerville to grab the member's office. I mean, home, to grab the person who used to represent that's home and come down. So the program that we use at the Capitol, you can go street by street and house by house. It tallies the data for you because technically every census block, every district has to have the exact same number of people in it.
Okay.
And of course there's a plus or minus, but that's why some, Travis County is divided up into several different districts at several different levels, where if you go to West Texas, it takes 21 counties to make up one because it's population based. So how do we take it back was the question.
Yeah. It's just going to keep swinging back and forth. I mean, is there any hope of appointing or hiring a third party group to do it without partisan favorship, or is that impossible?
That's one of the ideas, is a nonpartisan committee that draws the maps. Of course, nonpartisan people are elected by partisan people. So to really get that purity.
All right, I'll do it.
That's right. I mean, the governor appoints, right? The majority is
Yeah.
going to appoint. I know somewhere up north, there's a computer that does it.
What's
And I want to
that?
say Iowa or Idaho, but I don't know anything outside of Texas.
It starts with I.
I think it starts with an
Could be
I. But they only have like 4 districts.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, compared to Texas, and they have like a population of people of color of maybe 2%. So would that work in Texas? No. But I think we can keep trying to make it more and more transparent and more fair. It's just going to be the party that gets power next has to be the bigger person. They have to be the Picard and do the right thing, not be like, well, you cued me all that time. That's right. Next generation.
Yeah.
NG. Okay.
I'm almost done with Voyager. Is that you buzzing over there?
No.
Oh, it's not me. Someone's phone is vibrating out there.
No.
It's not me.
Not my phone.
Okay. Anyway.
Wow. I guess we'll edit that out.
Oh, you really do get off on this stuff. Okay. Lacey Mack on Facebook.
Lacey.
Yeah, Lacey Mack on Facebook asks, I was wondering if there was a Texas group coordinating donations or organizing for the state races most likely to turn Democratic, sort of like swing left for the Texas House.
Yes, there is.
Oh, great.
There are several organizations that do this. Right now, there's one that's called the House Democratic Campaign Committee, the HDCC, and that is the Texas-based House Democratic Campaign Committee. So much like the federal level, but they're committed just to the state, to flipping the seats in Texas so that we can get a majority in the Texas House. So a lot of people are talking about the federal level where Democrats have a majority in the House and Republicans have a majority in the Senate. In Texas, Republicans control every level of government, governor, lieutenant governor, speaker, both chambers. But Democrats are only 9 seats away in the House here in Texas. And so the House Democratic Caucus, the Texas Democratic Party, Annie's List focused on women, but they do a lot of math. They do a lot of math and they figure out which districts are winnable and they invest all their resources into those specific races. Texas Freedom Network, full disclosure, I am on their board, but they focus on issues. And then they have a great program for college kids trying to turn out the vote and getting a lot of activity on college campuses. So they all are very calculated in what they're doing and giving to an organization.
Sorry, do they need money from us?
They do. They need money because then that helps them do their voter outreach. Right. So either text banks or phone banks or mailers that none of us look at or TV commercials if they have to. But I kind of feel like those organizations, if you give to an organization instead of an individual, like you kind of get a better return on your investment for your dollar.
Because they know where to invest, turn around and invest it.
Right. And they might be able to invest in one area that helps 5 people. Instead of giving to one candidate who's just focused on their area. And that's not to say don't give to candidates directly, but it's kind of like buying at Costco versus HEB. Last election. So in Texas, the House members, the 150 House members run every 2 years. They're always running.
What? Really?
So
the term limit is 2 years?
Well, each term is 2 years. There's no term limit.
There's no limit to how long you can do it.
Yeah. And in the Senate, it's
why? But why would you want that job to begin with? That's a whole other Zoom meeting. But
I think people, I do honestly feel like when people enter that building the first time, it is a pure, heartfelt desire to serve.
Yeah. And then how long until it gets totally sucked out of them? And then they're just beaten down.
A couple of sessions. I think when you get there at first, you think you're going to vote on all these great things and you don't realize that every vote has a consequence, right? Like a vote does not happen in a vacuum. You might have to vote for something you don't want to vote for on the floor so that you can get something else later.
Horse trading.
Yeah, it really is. And then you get used to.
That's you. There was a buzz and you looked down. That's you.
Okay, that was me. I'm sorry. That one was me. But I didn't hear it before that.
Okay.
Here, let me silence that.
I just don't want you to get in trouble, boss.
I appreciate it. I'm good. I'm good. But I do think, and people don't know this either, both the senators and the representatives make $7,500 a year.
Wow. So you still got to
70.
have another gig.
So they
How
have to
many
have another gig.
how many
And
days did they spend in Austin?
they only spend 140 days in Austin every other year.
Every other year. Okay,
Every other year. Now, that
that's
being
hard to have
said,
another job.
it is, and you're still responding to your constituents when you're not on the floor, right? I mean, most
Yeah.
members are at an event at lunch, they're at an event at dinner, they're talking to constituents, they're building up policy for next year. They're working all the time, or they should be working all the time.
So then this automatically to me introduces a problem, which is the type of people who can work when they want, or maybe don't have to work, are the
Yeah.
people who are running, and the money is just controlling all these races, and that's why it's predominantly white heterosexual male. Am I right
Yeah,
about that? Yeah.
you hit it right on the
Because
right
it'd
on
be
the
hard. I mean, like, well, this is federal, but AOC, who was a bartender or whatever, and was able to run and then win the race. In Texas, it doesn't sound like you could be waiting tables and try to be a representative.
I think that's true, and it's one of the barriers. You have to be independently wealthy,
Yeah. What?
or you have to have a job where they're just excited to have your name on the letterhead, right?
Okay.
There are some people.
Like Chuck E. Cheese might be real excited that you
Yeah,
were able to get elected.
right. They have the Dan Patrick pepperoni pizza, right? But there is one state rep who I love. She's not a state rep anymore, but when she decided to run, she got a job at like Foot Locker at the mall.
Awesome.
So by day, she's on the floor making laws for you. And then on the weekend, she's bidding you for shoes. And I thought that was such a beautiful commitment, right? Like, I want to be a state legislator so bad that I'm going to pick up this side gig.
Oh, she had to give up whatever salaried thing she had.
Right. And you can't be a state employee and run for office. Right. So if I ever wanted to run for office, I'd have to quit my day job and then run. So where is my money?
Yeah.
Come from, right? A campaign is 24/7. So yes. And the framers of our great state wanted a people's legislature. So that's why it's 140 days every other year. That's why you don't get paid much, because it wasn't supposed to become a profession. I think those are some things we should reevaluate so that we have legislators who get paid enough to just be a legislator and aren't pulled in competing directions by their day jobs.
Next question. Funny Man Michael Trejo on Facebook asked, can I get a medium drink but a small order of fries at the same combo price? So I think he maybe just got his lines crossed when he posted on my Facebook.
I don't know.
Question.
Can you?
Oh, yeah. You should be using may there. It should be may I get. Yeah.
Yes.
Good point.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, this is a good bonus question.
Okay, I'm ready.
Because it's one of those that I think would be really hard to pull off. But Shaq Webb on the book asks.
Wow.
Yeah, all these are from Facebook. But anyway, how do we enact ranked choice voting in the state, and which legislators might seem amenable?
You have to pass a state law.
Okay.
And so, I love drink choice.
Yeah.
Do you know what
I know what it is, but can you explain it to the other people who don't?
Of course. Yes. Right now, when you vote, especially like in a primary, you go in and you vote for your person and other people vote for theirs. And then one person has to win by a majority, 50% plus one vote. Right. But often that doesn't happen. So then you have to have a primary runoff.
Right. Which no one knows.
No one. I mean, I think we have like 4% voting in primary runoff, something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So what ranked choice does is it lets you say, my top choice is one, right? And then if that person doesn't win, then give my vote to this person. If that person doesn't win, give my vote to that person. So it all happens in one election, right? So it's less expensive. You have more participation. I think it really cuts down on like negative ads. I love it.
It widens the field. It makes it so that it's not just two people. You can have multiple people running. And if you get your second choice, it's not like when there's only two running and you get your second choice, well, that was the person you were, presumably voting against.
Right. So I love it. So I want to say there have been bills in the past. I want to say Democrats are more amenable to this than not.
Mhm.
Celia Ezreal here in Austin, she's a big election reform representative. My boss, Bobby Guerra, I'm sure would be up for it. Um, so you'd have to introduce a bill, and then whoever heads up the election committee in both chambers, the Senate and the House, those chairmen, they would have to bring the bill up
Okay.
in committee. So I'm going into the weeds here, but like you
Well,
can
this will take a while.
members can introduce a bill that says anything. They can do anything they want, whether it's constitutional or not. People often like, that's not constitutional. Well, the court decides if something's constitutional or not.
Sometimes it's political just to throw it out there.
Right. So we could
Yeah.
say, I want to change the days of the month to Stephanie Airy, and I could file that. Right. But then once it gets filed, it gets referred to committee, and then it's up to the committee chair gets to pick what bills
Okay.
they want to hear. There's nothing's fair. Nothing's if you put in the time, nothing's if you get there first. It's really just if they like the idea or not.
And those chair parties, I mean, those committee chairs are usually in the majority.
Yes.
From the majority party. So now we can see how everything kind of, I hate to use the word trickle down, but everything kind of becomes exponentially the majority in whatever way, whichever
Yes.
majority it is. It just kind of eats, it just sort of, propagates like that.
It does. It does. And like we were talking earlier about putting together a nonpartisan committee for redistricting. Well, who's going to appoint the nonpartisan people, the people in power? Right. So the House tends to follow a set of rules that are a little bit more seniority based, right? You get to pick a committee based on seniority, but the House also picks the speaker. We as voters do not vote on the speaker independently. The House members pick who lead them. In the Senate, the lieutenant governor, we do pick as the voters. But in the Senate, the lieutenant governor can do whatever she wants.
Whoa.
They can, and that's been a problem as Democrats have lost power in that upper chamber. There are practically no Democratic chairs. The ones who are chairs are well known for voting for a lot of Republican priorities.
Right.
And this is what I was saying earlier too. Like, you're like, great, I'm going to vote against this thing in committee. Yeah. And then the lieutenant governor comes down and says to me, if you don't vote my bill out, I'm not bringing up a single one of your bills on the floor. And the lieutenant governor can do that. Yeah. So as we sit here so excited about, Trump versus Biden and Kamala, like that's great at the federal level, but this shit is happening at the state level, and we have so much more opportunity to impact it with our vote down ballot.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and in 2 years will be statewide elections again for the governor, Greg Abbott, for Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Right now, Ken Paxton, who's our Attorney General, he was indicted years ago for securities fraud, still awaiting trial. Just last week, some of his top aides came out and said he's been accepting bribes while in office. Right. And I mean, there's just accusations. And of course, and I don't know if you know this too, but his wife ran for Senate, Ken Paxton's wife did, and she won. The very first bill she filed in the Senate was a bill that would make his alleged crime not illegal.
And it wouldn't be retroactive if he'd been convicted already, but but you'd be able to drop the charges. How convenient.
But what I love about this is that especially your House member, and don't forget we have like State Board of Education members, sheriff, it goes down the list, but there's a district office in everybody's district. So you can walk into the district office of your senator, your state senator, or your state rep, and sometimes you can just ask for a meeting with them.
I'm going.
There you go. Just go on in.
I'm going.
Yeah. And just be like, hey, my name is Cliff, and I really want a nonpartisan redistricting committee. Here's my idea. And Republican or Democrat, I mean, especially the staffers in that building are wonderful.
Yeah, they're not quite as political, right?
They're not. They're not. And we're used to working with each other. But that's what I like. You can't walk into the president's office, right? But you can walk into your rep's office, and sometimes they're just sitting there and you can talk directly to them. Like it's right here at your fingertips if you would just watch Over the Ledge and read the Texas Tribune.
Yeah.
And vote down ballot. It's that simple. 3 easy steps.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me and joining us out here on the internet
Good, I
and
hope.
sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
This has been illuminating, and I hope it's going to help us make things better.
Me too. Thanks for thinking of me, Jeremy. Mommy made me mash my M&M.
Sorry about your M&Ms.
Thank you.
All right, you ready?
Yes.